The mansion was a reflection of the life that Richard and Rebecca had built together, elegant, bright, and, from the outside, perfect. The charity event that Rebecca had organized attracted the most influential people in high society from New York City. With the soft lights of the chandeliers reflecting on delicate crystals and tables adorned with floral arrangements that seemed taken from a dream, the atmosphere was both celebratory and pressured. As she entered the ballroom, Rebecca smiled, shaking hands with the guests and engaging in small talk with a grace she had cultivated over the years, but inside, fear settled in like an unrelenting shadow. Beyond the glamour, a weight pressed on her, the secret that had followed her for years and that, through a surprising twist of fate, was now closer than ever to being revealed. Richard, proud of the woman by his side, filled the spaces with his natural charisma. It was evident the impact he had on others and how everyone applauded him not only for his success as a businessman but also for his devotion to his wife. However, every smile wove a web of tension around Rebecca. Though she tried to enjoy the event, the unease that her past as Rosa Fernandez might be discovered was a constant that kept her on edge. She had fought so hard to leave that life behind and become Rebecca Flores, and the thought that it could all come crashing down terrified her. The clamor of conversations blended with the soft melodies emanating from an orchestra in the back. A wave of laughter drew Rebecca's attention to the entrance, where she immediately recognized Lucy. Her sister, so familiar yet strange at the same time, had unexpectedly shown up just as the fabric of her perfect life began to unravel. The noise of the crowd faded, and time seemed to stop for a moment as Lucy called her by her real name, Rosa. The heartfelt laughter of the people around her faded into a distant echo. In that instant, Rebecca's heart stopped. Despite the years she had spent changing her identity to escape her origins, the vulnerability of her true self was exposed to the harsh light of the present. Lucy hadn't just arrived, she had brought with her memories that Rebecca thought were buried. By her side, Richard stopped, noticeably confused by Rebecca's apprehensive glance, as she desperately tried to distract her sister in order to protect herself. Everything in her screamed to push Lucy away, but she couldn't help noticing. Richard was watching, his eyes probing, wondering what was happening. When they were finally alone, Lucy reproached her with frustration and resentment. Her words overflowed with anguish. "How could you forget about us? Our parents need you, Rosa." Rebecca, with tears in her eyes, knew this moment was marked by a challenging reality. The daughter of San Mateo faced the successful woman, and in the crucible of the fire of her past, her dignity was at stake. The conversation became tense, and every word from Lucy ripped apart the veil of perfection Rebecca had built around herself. Richard, hiding to the side, listened attentively to every word. His chest beat like a drum as he processed what he was hearing. The revelation meant there was a deep story behind the image he had idealized of Rebecca. He had thought he knew her completely, but now he saw her in shadows, fragments of truth and lies. He was unable to understand how the woman he loved could have hidden something so essential from him. A deep hatred for lies and deceit grew inside him, while his love for her seemed to teeter on the edge of a cliff. After what felt like hours, Rebecca's anguish reached its climax. "I've always been afraid, Richard," she said through sobs, "afraid of being judged and rejected for a past I can't escape. I loved you so much that I gave up my true self to be with you." The release of that burden seemed to shake the tension. She wasn't asking for forgiveness, she was simply asking for the chance to be understood. Richard, hearing those words, realized the internal battle his wife had fought for years and how his love had built a wall around her truth. The return to San Mateo felt like a journey to a world Rebecca had thought was dead. Walking through the streets of her childhood, where memories came rushing back in frantic waves, was an emotional shock. Richard, always by her side, looked not only with curiosity but with understanding. With each person they met, each story of struggle and resilience, he began to understand the complexity of the young woman he loved and at the same time wanted to protect from others' judgments. The reality of her past, in contrast to the bright side of her current life, was like a puzzle that needed to be pieced together, piece by piece. Finally, as they sat among the memories of her family, Rebecca expressed her pain for not having been there when they needed her most. "I've lived in a golden cage, but my heart has always been here," she confessed. Richard, hearing her, felt his admiration for his wife grow. Instead of disappointment, he began to see the strength in the vulnerability she showed, the courage it must have taken to leave her past behind. In that small adobe house, with the intense gaze of her family, Rebecca began to rediscover herself, connected to the past she had always wanted to forget. When they returned to New York City, a noticeable change had settled between them. With their hearts more open, they committed to being a more transparent couple, a beautiful alliance built on truth. Richard, using his powerful influence, promoted projects to help San Mateo, encouraging hope and change in the community. Meanwhile, Rebecca began sharing her journey, telling stories of overcoming struggles at charity events, where she could see how she inspired others to heal their own traumas. Thus, the transformative love that had grown through the storm of revelations became the foundation for a new vision. The secret she had once feared was now the beacon guiding them toward a future of compassion and understanding. Through vulnerability, Rebecca and Richard found the strength to face any obstacle that came their way. And that light, a symbol of total acceptance of each other, promised to take them toward the greatness they had always dreamed of, but from a more authentic and sincere place. Time passed, and with each new day, Rebecca and Richard's marriage grew stronger from the lessons learned and the bonds restored. Their lives, once lost in the fog of the past, revolved around a vibrant future full of renewed goals. Life in San Mateo, filled with challenges and hopes, had left an indelible mark on their hearts. Richard, now more aware of the realities many faced, immersed himself in social projects that sought to provide structural and educational improvements to the community. For her part, Rebecca found renewed purpose in her philanthropy, taking her story of overcoming struggles and her identity to places where her voice could make an impact. The first step toward change was organizing a massive fundraising event at the mansion, an event that promised to involve high society, but also include a significant number of voices from the town. The idea of combining the glamour of their life with the reality of those living in San Mateo resonated with both truths, accepting their origins and reclaiming a future where there was no shame in poverty. Thus, Rebecca's concern about the image of their partnership transformed into a social proactivity where revealing their past became liberating. Under the bright light of a new day, Rebecca and Richard got to work. The event was a display of splendor. The mansion had never been so full of joyous laughter and hopeful expressions. Music filled the air, the aroma of exquisite food from different regions enveloped the guests, while the decor blended luxurious elements with traditional crafts from San Mateo. However, what truly filled them with satisfaction were the stories shared by the locals who had been invited to showcase not only their handcrafted goods but also a glimpse of their lives and hopes. It was a bold script twist that tore down the layers of superficiality that had defined Rebecca's life up to that point. As the evening progressed, Rebecca took the microphone to address the audience. Her voice trembled, but deep down, she felt a strength that resonated with her truth. "Tonight, we don't just celebrate a charity gala," she began, her gaze captivating everyone present. "We celebrate the stories that are often ignored, the struggles we all face, and what it truly means to have a united community." Her words resonated in respectful silence, and in that environment, she shared her own story, talking about her past, the pain of growing up in poverty, her desire to escape, and the transformation she had undergone through her marriage to Richard. The atmosphere shifted, the air thickened as the crowd absorbed the honesty in her words. Whispers and looks of astonishment multiplied, and Rebecca realized that she wasn't just opening her heart but also offering a shift in perspective to those who had strictly judged her based on appearances. In that moment, the vulnerability she had feared for so long became her greatest strength. By the end of her speech, the applause was intense, and many of the attendees came up to offer their support. Richard, standing at the side, was filled with pride, his heart swelling for Rebecca's bravery. In those moments, both discovered that their love had not only survived the storms of their past but was built on the acceptance and commitment to facing their truth together. The perfect life they had imagined was not a superficial dream, it was the everyday life transformed by honesty and collaboration. The transformation of their relationship was also a reinvention of their future, of all the promises they made to each other to never forget where they came from and to never stop reaching out to those in similar situations. The days turned into weeks, and the impact of the event was significant for the San Mateo community. Richard and Rebecca continued working tirelessly on initiatives that fostered education, health, and culture. Scholarship programs, health campaigns, and cultural initiatives were established, celebrating the heritage of their people. Everything they had cultivated was strengthened by the union of their worlds, the glamorous and rigid world of high society with the humble and resilient world of San Mateo. But beyond their professional achievements, what truly shone was the emotional connection that had been woven between them and their community. They established the Rebecca Flores Foundation, dedicated not only to helping their relatives in San Mateo but also empowering women who, like Rebecca, had felt the pressure of hiding their origins. Rebecca's words became a mantra for many: let's not allow our pasts to define us, but to strengthen us. However, the past never stays in the shadows. One day, an old acquaintance from Rebecca's childhood, a man who knew her darkest secrets, appeared in the media. The story was explosive. He announced that he had revealing information about the wife of the wealthy businessman, insinuating that the glamorous life she led would no longer be the same, and that everyone would understand that behind that facade, there was more than just a fabricated success story. Rebecca felt the world crumble around her. The trust she had placed in revealing her story to the public was devastating. In an instant, Richard went from admiration to tension, questioning once again whether he had truly known the woman he had fallen in love with. Rebecca, seeing the pain in his eyes, felt crushed by guilt, tormented by the possibility of losing everything after fighting so hard to build something solid. It was a cold wind that swept away the hope they had worked so hard to nurture. The situation escalated quickly, shaking even the foundations of the foundation. Rebecca knew she had to act to prevent her past from overshadowing everything she had accomplished. In an urgent press conference, she looked at the journalists. It was time to face the truth again, not to be dragged by the shadows of her past. The room, filled with inquisitive gazes, made her feel vulnerable, but dressed with renewed determination, she began to speak. I'm here today to be completely transparent and not allow rumors to say more about me than they should, she started, her voice bold. She shared how she had been unexpectedly confronted by childhood demons she never expected to face again. Amidst the anxious questions from journalists, she stood tall with the strength of a lioness. I am Rosa Fernandez, a woman who sold candy on the corner of a small town in Mexico, but today I do this work because I know that, just like me, there are many other voices that need to be heard. The uproar behind her was deafening. But this time, the murmurs weren't of disdain, they were of admiration and empathy. Richard, watching her, felt his love for her reignite, stronger than ever, understanding that her struggle was also his. She was re-evaluating what authenticity meant, and he couldn't have been prouder of his wife in that very moment. It was now clear that Rebecca had transformed her vulnerability into her greatest strength. Life was not a game of appearances but a journey of self-discovery that everyone should honor. In the midst of the chaos, she emerged as a symbol of resistance but also of hope. The people of San Mateo saw in her the reflection of their own battles, resonating in the hearts of all those who had once felt their lives weren't bright enough. The outcome left an unshakable lesson: the truth is a journey, not a destination. And on that path, they built a legacy deeper than any of the material achievements they had sought. As the sun began to set behind the vast skyline of New York City, Rebecca and Richard, hands intertwined, knew that the new chapters of their lives were yet to be written, but with the strength and clarity that only true love and total acceptance could provide. With the resonating echo of the truth revealed, Rebecca and Richard's lives took an unexpected turn, but somehow, they were ready for whatever would come next. The community began to see them as the leaders they needed, people who, despite the mistakes of their past, had chosen to transform themselves and help others along their own path. As the days turned into months, the Rebecca Flores Foundation gained more support, attracting people who wanted to get involved and change the narrative of their own communities. Empowerment workshops were held, not just sharing useful information but also life stories that empowered attendees. Rebecca, with Richard's unconditional support, organized an event in San Mateo that would not only highlight their traditions but also celebrate the stories of their most vulnerable inhabitants. The idea was to create a festival where both the town and high society could come together, see firsthand the richness of rural life, and recognize that expressions of struggle and hope had no social class. The date was approaching quickly, and preparations were in full swing. Richard, seeing the energy and enthusiasm emanating from Rebecca, became her greatest ally, not only supporting the logistical aspects but also accompanying her in speeches and presentations. The event was named Voices of San Mateo, a place where local talents would stand out and funds would be raised for community projects. On the day of the event, the streets of the town were adorned with colorful flags and lights that transformed the usual calm of San Mateo. However, for Rebecca, the accumulated pressure reflected an old acquaintance, the fear that everything might go wrong. So, while the brilliance surrounded her, a dark thought crossed her mind: what if this doesn't work out? But at that moment, Richard took her hand and whispered, "Today we celebrate, there is no more fear. Every step we've taken is part of this journey. What matters is the light we share." The festival was a resounding success. It began with an opening ceremony where several local personalities joined Rebecca and Richard on stage. The message was clear: unity in diversity is a powerful engine of change. Together, they stumbled through stories that lifted the spirits of many. Rebecca felt that every word she spoke was anchored in the land of the community that had seen her grow. Her voice resonated with truth, and every affirmation she made was a reminder of the journey they had traveled. Throughout the day, there were cultural performances showcasing the traditions of San Mateo, from folk dances to artisan exhibitions. While Richard spoke with local entrepreneurs, Rebecca focused on speaking with the young people who had grown up in difficult circumstances. She told them that her story wasn't about hiding their roots, but about how to rise up and build a bright future. "Never stop dreaming," she insisted. "In each of you, there is a power that transcends the past." Amid laughter, hugs, and dances, the energy they so desperately needed returned. However, in the moments of greatest happiness, the memory of the appearance of the man from her past always lingered. A nascent rumor began to circulate among the attendees. There were whispers that a new controversy was brewing, with more people from the community echoing the story of the man who had threatened to ruin everything. A sense of uncertainty began to seize the atmosphere, creating a bubble of unrest that hovered over the festival. Hearing the first gossip, Rebecca's heart raced. The palpable fear returned. Couldn't there be a single day without problems, she thought. However, the moment of despair became an opportunity when Rebecca decided to act immediately. Instead of retreating and drowning her voice in the shadow of her story, she approached the microphones once again. "Today, I don't just celebrate with you, but I am also here to make sure we all know the truth, the story, and the power of a united community in this celebration, she said, with a fiery passion. I am not afraid to say that I come from a place that has been considered inferior in many ways, but it is exactly those moments that make us strong. When we are vulnerable together, we can face any storm. Her words crossed barriers, and the crowd, instead of being divided, began to come together. As the connection became more palpable, Richard, feeling the energy of the collective rebirth, joined her on stage. Together, they took a moment to embrace and hold that instant in their hearts. There is no place for judgment or division, Richard continued. Today, we embrace each other as family, because the differences we thought separated us are the ones that enrich us. And so, in the midst of the carnival of lights, music, and art, love triumphed. The festival left an indelible mark on the hearts of the attendees, a reminder that life is a collection of stories where everyone has a role to play. The problems of the past didn't disappear, but the conviction of how to face them together took hold of the minds of everyone present. Rebecca and Richard looked at each other, aware that they were building a legacy that would inspire not only their community but also those who, like them, wished to be a beacon of light and hope. As the lights faded and the music faded, they returned home with hearts full of joy and purpose. The life they had wanted to build turned out to be more than just a facade of success. It was anchored in truth and authenticity, created by love and the commitment to lift those around them. As the path ahead of them expanded, filled with new adventures, the love that had emerged from their vulnerability became the driving force of their common mission. The following months were a journey of constant growth. With each program they launched and each heart they touched, Rebecca and Richard discovered that they were not only helping others but also healing themselves through the process. They were an expanding couple, connected not only by love but also by a shared, community-centered purpose. Rebecca, embracing her identity like never before, decided to start a blog where she not only shared her methods of overcoming struggles but also her daily life with Richard and their interactions with the community. Through her words, she longed to break down walls and stereotypes. And so, the journey had a chain effect, pushing many to follow her example, opening spaces for others to tell their stories and join the conversation. Everything seemed to be falling into place until, one day, the echo of rumors reached their door, this time fiercer than before. The man from Rebecca's past, in another attempt to gain attention, decided that his story wasn't over. He launched a direct challenge toward Rebecca, threatening to reveal more details, assuring that the truth behind her name and her public image with Richard would be exposed. In that moment, both of their hearts beat in unison with a sense of concern. The struggle wasn't over, and the life mission they had begun was about to be tested once again. The atmosphere grew heavy, as if the very air had thickened with anxiety, when Rebecca and Richard sat down to face the new wave of turbulence that threatened to drag them into an abyss. The man's threat hung over them like a dark storm, casting a shadow on their world, a world that had been carefully built on trust, truth, and love. They knew their story had resonated in the hearts of many, but the destructive power of a well-kept secret could rise up, even in the brightest light. Richard, uneasy and concerned, took Rebecca's hand, seeking strength in her touch. "We'll overcome this," he said, but his voice sounded more like an affirmation than a genuine promise. Each beat of Rebecca's heart resonated with the pressure of her past. She felt once again that the ground beneath her trembled, questioning the stability they had rebuilt together. It was a delicate balance between moving forward and the possibility of being pushed back. In the depths of her heart, Rebecca knew she couldn't let the darkness of her past define her present. Yet, she also understood that it would be a significant challenge to raise her voice again, facing her fears and exposing her soul to public judgment. The pressure from society, the expectation to be the perfect wife of a successful businessman, and at the same time, to be seen as a public figure who had hidden her true identity, threatened to crush her. But within her, a spark of determination began to ignite. After nights of sleeplessness, filled with conversations marked by tears and hesitations, they realized they couldn't let the man's story control their narrative. They decided that it would be better to confront the situation proactively before the gossip got out of hand. They organized a press conference to address the issue publicly, fully aware that honesty had always been their best ally. "We cannot allow someone to harm us out of fear of being judged. This time, we will take control," Rebecca proclaimed, her gaze burning with renewed fire. The day of the press conference was filled with nerves and mixed emotions. As they prepared, Richard looked out the window and reflected on how far they had come. There was something deeply beautiful about the love they shared, in the willingness to protect each other. Rebecca, feeling his gaze full of love and defiance, knew she could leave everything in Richard's hands, but it was time for her to make her own statement. Her words would carry the strength of two, and at the same time, the freedom to be the woman she truly was. Entering the press room, Rebecca felt as though she were about to conquer a mountain. With her heart in her hand and a firm decision rooted deep within her, she faced the journalists who waited, their faces anxious and cameras ready to capture her truth. The tension was palpable, but her voice rose with clarity. "I come here to confess that I am Rosa Fernandez, and I have a past of which I am not ashamed. But today, I am not just a story. I am a woman who has fought, who has reinvented herself, and who has chosen to live not only for myself but to serve those who have been ignored. I know you may have questions and doubts, and I am here to face them all because the truth must reign." The uproar behind her was deafening. But this time, the murmurs weren't of disdain, they were of admiration and empathy. Richard, standing by her side, felt an immense wave of pride. She was risking it all, and in her vulnerability, there was an unbeatable beauty. With a soft whisper, he took her hand, and she continued, "We will not let the flame of dignity be extinguished by what others think or say. The man who tries to make noise doesn't have power over us, because we are the masters of our story." The lights shone even brighter as, to everyone's surprise, Rebecca invited the journalists to hear the stories of many present. From San Mateo producers who shared their traditions to brave women who fought for their independence, every voice intertwined with hers, creating a human choir that resonated louder than any slander. As time passed in the press room, the narrative shifted from being an event focused solely on Rebecca and Richard to a tribute to a community full of life, diversity, and potential. When the press conference ended, the external murmurs had softened. They understood the impact that authenticity could have, not just on an individual but on an entire community. It was clear that the hearts of those who had witnessed Rebecca's bravery, and the way everyone embraced each other in their vulnerability, would lead to change. That determined woman had risen above her past and transformed into the torch of hope on a path full of obstacles. But not everything was easy or resolved. As the following days passed, Rebecca and Richard faced the repercussions of their decision. The media had indeed found the scandal they wanted to focus on, and although they had faced their truth, the shadow of questions continued to hover. The man who had been behind the threat began appearing in interviews, talking about how hypocritical Rebecca was for having hidden her past. The pressure seemed relentless, but Rebecca and Richard armed themselves with the love they had cultivated in peaceful times. It became their refuge to face the storms ahead. With the support of the San Mateo community behind them, their efforts for truth and philanthropy continued. This network of support not only gave them courage but also the determination to move forward without fear. Thus, Rebecca decided to use her platform to continue her social work, shifting the narratives that existed in society. Their actions in the community became more than just a fundraiser. They created spaces for dialogue where difficult realities were discussed, and plans were made to transform lives for the better. As the months passed and life continued, Rebecca and Richard realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but acting in spite of it. With every new project launched and every life touched, the couple's story became a lesson in authenticity, redemption, and the importance of never letting the past define who you can become. Finally, one sunny day, Rebecca was invited to speak at an international conference on female empowerment. For her, it was a step toward a new horizon. It would be the stage where she could be the voice of those who had remained silenced for so long. The same Rebecca who had once hidden her identity was now preparing to speak to the world, with her true self, her real name, and her story to share. This time, she knew her voice, unstoppable and strong, would resonate far beyond the walls where she had once felt trapped. "We are here to change the narrative," began Rebecca's words, as the audience held its breath. "There is no need to be afraid of being who you are. Each one of us has the power to rewrite our own story." It was the beginning of a new life. And with Richard by her side, Rebecca was ready to face anything that came their way, knowing that together, they could overcome any obstacle life had in store for them. The large conference room, lit by the sunlight streaming through the vast windows, was filled with expectant faces. Rebecca felt overwhelmed by the energy of the audience, a mix of women and men from different cultures, all seeking inspiration and change. Every step she took toward the podium was an echo of her journey. Uncertainty had been part of her trajectory, but now motivation shone in her eyes. That moment had arrived, and she was ready to seize it. When she finally stood before the microphone, she took a deep breath, allowing calm to flood her being. The room fell silent, eager to hear the story of someone who had blurred the lines between fear and shame and had chosen to become a voice for others. "Today, I am not here to talk about myself," she began, each word carrying a weight of significance, "but to talk about all of us, about our stories, our struggles, and the strength we all have inside us." The connection with the audience deepened. Rebecca shared memories from her childhood in San Mateo, moments filled with insecurity and pain, but also with love and resilience. She spoke about how, through her journey, she had learned that there was nothing shameful about her origins. In fact, those moments were what made her who she was. "It is in our weaknesses that we find our true strengths," she assured. With every phrase, the audience began to feel not only the depth of her story but also the possibility of their own stories. As she spoke, her message was clear. It was not just about individual struggle, but about unity as a community to raise our voices in the face of adversity. She talked about how she had transformed her fear into strength and how her husband, Richard, had been a pillar throughout the process, encouraging her to raise her voice and not be afraid to be authentic. The room erupted in a burst of applause when she mentioned how, through the foundation they had created, they had confronted injustices, worked to give visibility and voice to those who had lost it, and helped those facing situations she had experienced firsthand. She cried, not out of sadness, but out of emotion and relief. It was a moment of purification, a remnant of the journey she had gone through. Life is full of obstacles, and it may seem monumental. But together, we can create a future where our pasts do not define us. We can rewrite the narrative around those who have been told they are inferior. The power of her words filled the air, and the faces of those listening began to reflect the energy of transformation. In a burst of inspiration, she invited the audience to share their own stories. Several hands went up, and soon the meeting transformed into a cohesive dialogue. The experiences intertwined into a collective tale of resilience and empowerment that erupted in a crescendo of emotion. Every person who dared to speak joined those who had once felt small and discouraged, reaffirming that in their vulnerability lay true strength. The conference ended with a thunderous round of applause, a testimony to the power of words and the true meaning of community. Rebecca left the stage with a renewed vitality. There was no more fear or reservation in her heart. On her way back, she met Richard, who greeted her with a warm kiss and a look that spoke volumes. Together, their love and commitment were reaffirmed, becoming an unstoppable force. Back home, life continued, but now there was a palpable light within Rebecca. With each new day, more people from the San Mateo community began to join their initiatives. The Rebecca Flores Foundation became a refuge for opportunities, where skills workshops and personal development programs were offered. The small town began to feel the change not only in their living conditions but also in their hearts. The shame that once existed was now transformed into pride. With each step, Rebecca discovered more of her essence. She embraced her own story, celebrating not only her achievements but also the struggles that had defined her. She no longer hid behind a wall of glamour, she was Rosa Fernandez, and that was enough. Her constant evolution was evident day by day, and soon she realized that many young women from her workshops were inspired by her journey. Rebecca began to get even more involved, creating a mentorship program focused on empowering young women to find their own voices. As things progressed in the right direction, the shadow of the man from her past still lingered. Though she had largely overcome it, every time new information or slander emerged, Rebecca and Richard felt uneasy. However, over time, they learned to let their actions speak for themselves, knowing that those who truly mattered would see beyond the superficial stages of life. Even though the issue kept resurfacing in the news, they focused on showing that their love and work were more important than any uproar. One Sunday, at a community event organized by the foundation, a small plaza was planted in the heart of San Mateo. It was an effort to strengthen community awareness and highlight the achievements of ordinary people. With a brief inauguration ceremony and the construction of a new green space, Rebecca once again stood before her people. Today, we celebrate not just our challenges, but all the victories we've achieved together as a community, she said. The atmosphere was festive, and the community came together to share their talents in a joyful setting. Poetry readings, dances, and musical performances filled the air. As Rebecca looked around, she realized that each ray of sunshine illuminated a new path, a new story being woven into the fabric of her life. The shared stories, the laughter, and the hugs were proof that unity could create genuine transformation. As the party approached its climax, a group of young people stood up and performed a song about overcoming and unity. The words were simple, but the meaning behind them was profound. The lyrics, filled with life and shared hopes, resonated in the air and brought tears to Rebecca's eyes. Islands of hope emerged from past storms, and the cycle of life continued with strength. She had never felt such a strong connection to her community before. As the night fell, under a starry sky, fireworks exploded in the air, symbolizing the new circumstances that were rising in her life. Rebecca realized that she had gone from a past marked by fear to a future filled with possibilities. Feeling stronger and more confident than ever, she understood that her journey would never come to an end. There would always be a new horizon of challenges to face and hearts to touch. However, in the midst of the celebration, the starry sky also served as a reminder that her story was not complete. As life continued, Rebecca and Richard would seek new paths to preserve the values of empathy, community, and love with every step they took. While both gazed at the horizon, they knew they were ready to face any challenges the future might throw at them, together. Now and always, we will be defenders of the stories that must be heard, Rebecca said, intertwining her arm with Richard's. This is a journey that doesn't just belong to us, it's a journey for all of us. With the unwavering support of their community, Rebecca felt ready to face whatever challenges might come. Because in the end, what truly mattered was not just her past, but the present and the future they had decided to build together, a future that shone with all the promises traced by their intertwined hearts. As the lights from the fireworks exploded in the sky and the faces of the community sparkled with joy, Rebecca's heart beat strong. In that moment, no matter the lingering rumors or the challenges to come, she felt more alive than ever. Her transformation story had gone from a dark secret to becoming a beacon of hope and empowerment. That night, alongside Richard, she gazed at how life unfolded before them, full of possibilities, like a blank canvas ready to be painted with new experiences. The echo of laughter and applause blended with the sound of traditional music that filled the air. The San Mateo community had united in a unique celebration, and every corner of the plaza vibrated with contagious energy. Children ran around, couples danced, and elders shared stories over typical dishes reflecting the rich culture of the place. Rebecca moved through the crowd, her heart overflowing with gratitude as she greeted those who had supported her journey. Every face she recognized was a reminder of the strength that had been generated around her story of struggle. In a corner of the plaza, a group of women from the community gathered in a circle. Rebecca, drawn to the bustle, approached and joined them. These were women who had participated in the empowerment workshops she had started. The look in each of their eyes reflected a will to change their lives. They shared their progress, how they had started small businesses, and how their families were now supporting them. Rebecca was moved as she listened to one young woman tell how she had sold her first handmade products at the local market, and how her mother, once worried about the lack of opportunities, now felt immense pride watching her daughter blossom. "This is just the beginning," Rebecca said, recalling her own words with a wide smile. "Each one of you has the power to inspire others and show that transformation is possible. Your stories are the ones that will spark change in your communities." The conversation flowed, filled with laughter and a sense of belonging that filled the air. It was a moment of celebration not just for their individual achievements but for the collective growth they had experienced. In that connection, Rebecca could feel her heart fill with hope. Later, as the night deepened, Rebecca and Richard stepped away for a moment from the crowd. They sat on a bench overlooking the center of the plaza. They gazed at the lights illuminating the sky, listening to the distant sounds of the fireworks. "Do you realize how far we've come?" Richard said, breaking the silence. Rebecca nodded, knowing that the path hadn't been easy, but that every obstacle had been worth it. "When I look at all of this, I see the stories of everyone here, and I feel deeply grateful," she replied. "But I also realize there's still so much more to do. Every step we've taken has brought us to this moment, Rebecca," Richard said, taking her hand in his. "We've learned to face adversity, to be authentic in the public eye, and to accept ourselves for who we are. Not everyone can do that. Vulnerability is a strength, and you've shown that." Richard's words resonated deeply within her. She knew that, despite the criticism they faced, their love had been the foundation on which everything had been built. Without that support, they wouldn't have been able to withstand the storm of revelations and rumors. As they continued to talk, a group of young people approached them. They were the same kids who, during the festival, had shared their dreams of becoming musicians and artists. Mrs. Rebecca," one of them exclaimed with excitement. "We want you to hear our song." The lively voice of the teenagers attracted more people from the community, creating a small gathering around them. The music began to flow, the guitar strums and infectious rhythms filled the air, like a song of hope and youth. Rebecca smiled, feeling proud of these young people full of life who had found in her an example to follow. As she listened to the lyrics of the song, which spoke of perseverance, struggle, and unity, she realized that her story had left a mark on those who were willing to dream. It was a cycle of inspiration, the energy from her journey was radiating out to the new generations, and that was an unimaginable reward. As the melody echoed in the air, Rebecca remembered her own youthful aspirations, the Rosa Fernandez who had longed to be brave and face the world with her head held high. "Never stop dreaming," she whispered to herself as she watched the young people. "The courage to be yourself is the first step toward greatness." In her heart, she felt she had transcended her own fears, and now she could encourage others to do the same. With every song played, she felt more connected to the pulse of the community. Even though the threat from the man of her past still lingered in the air, she understood that her greatest power lay in the connection she had cultivated with those she loved. Rebecca knew that the path to acceptance and transformation would never be straight or without bumps, but she was ready to keep fighting for those around her. Back at home, after a day filled with energy and emotions, Rebecca and Richard reflected on each development, each shared story. The community had not only rejected the fear of judgment but also the dark legacy that had tried to disrupt their lives. It was a powerful reminder that no slander could break the communal spirit they had forged. "We are united in this fight," Richard said, looking at her tenderly. "And as long as we are, there is no challenge we can't overcome." With the light of the day, they began to define the next stage in their life. Rebecca decided it was time to expand their mission beyond San Mateo. By partnering with other organizations and empowerment platforms, they planned to bring their message to more communities, where other women could find their voices. There was so much to be done. As they explored the details of new projects, Rebecca began to seriously consider how they could expand their reach. Through talks, workshops, and the creation of safe spaces, they could help other people discover their potential. The idea of creating a network not only allowed them to extend their impact but also opened doors to many hearts in need, all with stories to tell. And so, they began to chart plans to create a movement that would expand throughout the country. Uniting forces with other valuable voices will make us stronger, Rebecca considered, while Richard gazed at her intently, admiring her determination. The weeks turned into months, and during those months, the Rebecca Flores Foundation began to grow exponentially. Requests for help became numerous, and each story that reached their ears was filled with hope and despair. From women facing gender-based violence to families struggling to escape poverty, they encountered deeply moving stories. Rebecca and Richard committed to addressing each case, emphasizing the importance of being an inclusive voice because behind every story was a human being who deserved to be valued. With the foundation expanding, they began to receive attention from the media on a larger scale, which was both a blessing and a challenge. From the very beginning, they had decided to be transparent about their mission. They knew that being the protagonists of their own story was essential. With every interview they gave, the community grew stronger, and Rebecca's figure became a reference for the transformative power of love and solidarity. The story that had started as a revelation of vulnerability was now becoming an icon of hope. However, they never forgot the shadow of the past. One day, in the middle of all the hustle and bustle of the foundation, they received a notification that the man who had threatened their story wanted to make another appearance in the media, seeking to attract attention to his personal life and revealing new details. Rebecca understood that, despite their efforts, the ghosts of the past would never stop haunting them. But instead of feeling frightened, a surge of strength coursed through her. "We cannot let anyone define who we are," Rebecca said to Richard as they reviewed the details of the new scandal in one of the foundation's rooms. "We will be the ones to tell our story." Richard smiled, recognizing the fire in Rebecca's eyes. "You are stronger than you think. This time, we're not alone. Everything we've built here is our truth, and we have nothing to fear." So, they decided to launch a new campaign, turning this situation into an awareness tool about the power of community and support between people. The idea was simple: invite people from all walks of life to share their stories, challenging the narratives that had long silenced them. The campaign was filled with enthusiasm and a renewed sense of purpose, turning fear into an act of community. With each new story, Rebecca felt more certain that her journey hadn't just been one of personal growth but also a beacon for others. The voices that would rise in this new campaign would play a crucial role in the fight for truth and recognition, where no feelings of inferiority would have a place. The drive to leave behind a legacy of love, acceptance, and unity took hold of their hearts and became the new engine that propelled them forward. The day of the launch arrived, and the community came together to celebrate not only their struggle but the human stories that unite everyone in the pursuit of justice and recognition. With each word shared, a new landscape of love and understanding was drawn, where collaboration exceeded any old resentment or insecurity. The event was a resounding success, resonating deeply in the lives of those who attended. As words of hope flowed, Rebecca and Richard exchanged a look, feeling the deep bond they had cultivated through all the twists and turns of their journey. They knew their love was a dynamic creation, not only based on what they had overcome but also on the strength that came from facing new challenges together. And so, with hearts full, they continued on their path, creating new opportunities, building bridges, and making it clear to the world that being authentic was not only an act of courage but a force capable of transforming entire societies. Just like the river flows, we will continue moving forward, Rebecca proclaimed with a radiant smile. She had found her voice, her purpose, and her community, and together, they were ready to face whatever the future held, knowing that love and unity would be their best shield. With the ever-present support of their community, Rebecca felt ready to face whatever challenges might arise. Because in the end, what truly mattered was not just her past, but the present and future they had decided to build together, a future that shone with all the promises traced by their intertwined hearts. As the lights of the fireworks burst in the sky and the faces of the community shone with joy, Rebecca's heart beat strong. In that moment, no matter the persistent rumors or the challenges to come, she felt more alive than ever. Her story of transformation had gone from a dark secret to becoming a beacon of hope and empowerment. That night, beside Richard, she gazed at how life unfolded before them, full of possibilities, like a blank canvas ready to be painted with new experiences. The echo of laughter and applause blended with the sound of traditional music filling the air. The San Mateo community had united in a unique celebration, and every corner of the plaza vibrated with contagious energy. Children ran around, couples danced, and elders shared stories over typical dishes reflecting the rich culture of the place. Rebecca moved through the crowd, her heart overflowing with gratitude as she greeted those who had supported her journey. Every face she recognized was a reminder of the strength that had been generated around her story of struggle. In a corner of the plaza, a group of women from the community gathered in a circle. Rebecca, drawn to the bustle, approached and joined them. These were women who had participated in the empowerment workshops she had started. The look in each of their eyes reflected a will to change their lives. They shared their progress, how they had started small businesses, and how their families were now supporting them. Rebecca was moved as she listened to one young woman tell how she had sold her first handmade products at the local market, and how her mother, once worried about the lack of opportunities, now felt immense pride watching her daughter blossom. "This is just the beginning," Rebecca said, recalling her own words with a wide smile. "Each one of you has the power to inspire others and show that transformation is possible. Your stories are the ones that will spark change in your communities." The conversation flowed, filled with laughter and a sense of belonging that filled the air. It was a moment of celebration not just for their individual achievements but for the collective growth they had experienced. In that connection, Rebecca could feel her heart fill with hope. Later, as the night deepened, Rebecca and Richard stepped away from the festivities for a quiet moment together. They sat on a bench near the center of the plaza, their hands intertwined, gazing at the lights that illuminated the space. The soft sounds of the celebration surrounded them, but in that peaceful moment, it felt as if time stood still. "I can't believe how much has changed," Rebecca said softly, her voice filled with awe. "Just a few years ago, I never imagined that our lives would look like this." Richard smiled warmly, his eyes filled with admiration for her. "You've done so much, Rebecca. You've transformed not just your life but the lives of so many others. Your courage has sparked something bigger than either of us could have imagined." Rebecca squeezed his hand, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. "We've done this together. This is our journey." As they sat there, watching the festivities continue, the weight of everything they had accomplished settled in. The fears, the struggles, the moments of doubt, they had all led to this. Their love, their mission, and the community they had built were now inseparable parts of their lives. It wasn't just about the foundation or the charity events anymore. It was about the deep connections they had forged with those around them, the bonds that would last far beyond any material success. Richard turned to Rebecca, his expression softening as he spoke. "There's still so much more we can do, Rebecca. So many more people to reach, so many more stories to tell." She nodded in agreement. "We're just getting started," she said, her voice steady and confident. The journey continues. The next few months brought even greater challenges and triumphs. As the foundation grew, so did the opportunities to make a difference. With each new project, Rebecca and Richard found new ways to create lasting change, not just in San Mateo but in other communities as well. They partnered with organizations across the country, spreading their message of hope and empowerment to those who needed it most. Rebecca's story continued to inspire countless others, and her platform expanded. She was invited to speak at conferences, participate in discussions about women's rights and social justice, and collaborate with other leaders in the field of philanthropy. Everywhere she went, she shared her message of resilience, hope, and the power of transformation. "Don't let your past define you," she told audiences. "You have the power to create a new future." Meanwhile, Richard worked tirelessly to ensure that their foundation's efforts were sustainable. He used his business expertise to secure funding, build partnerships, and expand their reach. Together, they were a formidable team, combining their unique skills and strengths to build something truly transformative. But even as they thrived, the shadow of the past continued to loom. The man who had threatened them before reappeared in the media, making new accusations and seeking to tarnish Rebecca's reputation once again. At first, the attack stung, but Rebecca and Richard had grown stronger over time. They no longer allowed the negativity to control their narrative. Instead, they doubled down on their mission. They continued to shine a light on the good they were doing, focusing on the positive impact they were making in the world. Rebecca refused to let anyone take away the work she had done or the love she had found. "We're not backing down," she said firmly. "This is who we are, and this is what we stand for." Their resilience paid off. The more the media tried to bring them down, the stronger their foundation became. People saw through the lies and rallied behind them, recognizing the truth of their work and their message. It wasn't long before the noise from the past faded away, replaced by the sound of people's voices lifting them up. As the years went by, the Rebecca Flores Foundation became a symbol of hope and empowerment. They had helped thousands of people, and their work had touched every corner of the country. Rebecca and Richard continued to lead with love, compassion, and unwavering determination. They had created something that would last long after they were gone, a legacy of transformation that would continue to inspire generations to come. As they looked back on their journey, Rebecca and Richard realized just how far they had come. Their love story had been a foundation, both literal and figurative, that allowed them to build something greater than themselves. It had started with a deep commitment to each other, and over time, it had expanded to include an entire community of people who believed in their mission. What began as a personal journey had become a global movement, inspiring thousands to take action and embrace their own truths. Rebecca often found herself reflecting on the woman she had once been, Rosa Fernandez, the girl who had dreamed of escaping her past and creating a new life. It was hard to believe that the same woman now stood before audiences, sharing her story with pride and strength. In a way, she had become the person she had always wanted to be, but only because she had embraced the lessons of her past and used them to shape her future. "Sometimes I can't believe how much we've accomplished," Rebecca confessed to Richard one evening as they sat in the garden of their home. "It's incredible, but it's also overwhelming. Sometimes I wonder if we've truly reached the people who need us most." Richard took her hand and smiled. "We've reached more than we could have ever imagined, Rebecca. And the best part is that we're just getting started. There's always more to do, more people to help, more stories to tell. We're creating a ripple effect that will continue long after we're gone." Rebecca nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace. She knew that their work would never be finished. There would always be new challenges, new communities to serve, and new voices to amplify. But she also knew that they had made a lasting impact. Their journey had been one of constant growth, transformation, and discovery, and they were now living the life they had always dreamed of, one filled with purpose and love. As the foundation continued to grow, Rebecca and Richard made sure to keep their personal lives grounded. They spent quality time with their family, especially their children, who had become a source of endless joy and inspiration. They watched with pride as their kids grew up, each of them finding their own path and making a difference in their own way. It was a reminder that the legacy they were building wasn't just about their work, it was about the next generation, who would carry the torch forward. One afternoon, while visiting a local school in San Mateo, Rebecca was approached by a young girl who had been attending one of the foundation's mentorship programs. The girl was shy at first, but after a few moments, she looked up at Rebecca with wide eyes and said, "You saved my life. I didn't think I could ever be someone. But now, I know that I can do anything." Rebecca felt tears welling in her eyes as she knelt down to speak with the girl. "You've always had the power inside you," she said softly. "All I did was help you find it. You're the one who made the choice to change your life. And now, look at you, you're a warrior." The girl smiled, and Rebecca felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the work they were doing. It was moments like this that reminded her why she had started this journey in the first place. The foundation wasn't just about raising money or gaining recognition. It was about changing lives, one person at a time. As Rebecca and Richard continued their work, they faced new challenges, but they approached each one with the same resilience and determination that had carried them this far. They knew that no matter what happened, they were in this together, and their love would continue to be the driving force behind everything they did. The foundation had become a symbol of hope, not just for San Mateo but for communities across the world. People were inspired by the story of Rebecca and Richard and their unwavering commitment to making the world a better place. They knew that anything was possible if they worked together, supported one another, and never gave up on their dreams. Years passed, and the Rebecca Flores Foundation continued to thrive. The ripple effect of their work spread to new corners of the country and beyond, impacting lives in ways they had never imagined. As Rebecca and Richard looked at the foundation they had built together, they couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of pride. They had not only transformed their own lives but had helped countless others find their own path to empowerment. The foundation had become a powerful force for social change, advocating for women's rights, education, and equality. They had partnered with major organizations and had become a voice for those who had been silenced for too long. Rebecca had appeared on national television, sharing her story and urging others to embrace their own truths. Her message resonated with people from all walks of life, men and women, young and old, who had been inspired by her resilience and determination. Rebecca and Richard had worked tirelessly to ensure that their work was sustainable. They had created scholarship programs, job training initiatives, and mentorship opportunities that would continue to benefit future generations. But they knew that there was still so much more to be done. They had learned that the fight for equality and justice was an ongoing one, and they were committed to continuing their work for as long as they could. Despite their success, Rebecca remained grounded and focused on what truly mattered. She never lost sight of the people who had supported her along the way, the community of San Mateo, the people who had believed in her when she was still struggling to believe in herself. They had been with her from the very beginning, and she made sure to always honor that connection. One evening, as Rebecca and Richard sat on the porch of their home, they reflected on the incredible journey they had been on. They had come so far, and yet, they both knew that their work was far from over. "We've made such a difference, Richard," Rebecca said, her voice filled with gratitude. "But I still feel like there's so much more to do." Richard smiled, his hand gently resting on hers. "There will always be more to do, Rebecca. And as long as we have the strength to keep going, we will. But look at everything we've accomplished. Look at the people we've helped, the lives we've touched. That's something to be proud of." Rebecca nodded, feeling the weight of his words. They had come so far, but they had also laid the foundation for so much more. She had learned that true success wasn't measured by accolades or recognition, but by the difference you made in the lives of others. It was about the people you lifted up and the stories you helped to rewrite. As they continued to work, new opportunities arose, and Rebecca and Richard embraced each one with open arms. They traveled to new places, met new people, and continued to spread their message of hope and empowerment. Along the way, they encountered new challenges, but they faced them together, knowing that their love and commitment would always be the anchor that kept them grounded. One of the most rewarding aspects of their journey was seeing the next generation of leaders emerge. The young women who had once looked to Rebecca for guidance were now stepping up to take the reins, leading their own initiatives and creating their own impact. It was a testament to the power of mentorship and the lasting legacy of their work. Rebecca and Richard knew that their time in the spotlight would eventually come to an end, but they were confident that the foundation they had built would continue to thrive for many years to come. They had created something that was bigger than themselves, something that would outlast them and continue to inspire generations to come. As they watched their children grow up, they saw the values they had instilled in them take root. They had raised young people who were compassionate, driven, and committed to making a difference in the world. The legacy they had created was not just about their own work, it was about passing on the torch to the next generation, empowering them to carry the mission forward. One evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Rebecca and Richard looked at their children with pride. Each one of them had taken their own path, but they had all embraced the values of love, compassion, and service that their parents had instilled in them. As they shared stories of their own work and aspirations, Rebecca felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She knew that the legacy she had worked so hard to create would continue through them. "It's amazing to see how far we've come," Rebecca said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "But I also know that everything we've done was just the beginning. The future is in your hands now." Her words resonated with their children, who had grown into thoughtful and passionate young adults, ready to take on the world. They had seen firsthand the impact of their parents' work, and it had shaped their own dreams. As they each set off on their own paths, Rebecca and Richard knew that the foundation they had built would continue to inspire and guide the next generation of leaders. Over the years, the Rebecca Flores Foundation continued to grow and evolve. New projects were launched, and more communities were reached. But even as they expanded, the core values of love, service, and empowerment remained unchanged. Rebecca had created a movement that was larger than herself, one that would continue to make a difference in the world long after she was gone. As she reflected on her life, Rebecca thought about all the obstacles she had overcome. There had been so many moments of doubt, fear, and uncertainty, but each challenge had only made her stronger. And now, as she looked at all the lives that had been touched by her work, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "I couldn't have done any of this without you," she said to Richard one evening as they watched the sunset together. "You were my rock, my partner in this journey. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Richard smiled, his hand resting gently on hers. "We believed in each other, Rebecca. That's what got us through it all. And now, look at what we've built together. It's something beautiful." Rebecca nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace. They had done it. They had built a foundation of love, compassion, and empowerment that would continue to change lives for generations to come. As they moved into the next chapter of their lives, Rebecca and Richard continued to live with purpose and passion. They knew that the work they had started was far from over, but they also knew that they had created something lasting, a legacy of hope and transformation. And as they looked at the future, they knew that it was bright. The world was full of possibilities, and together, they would continue to make a difference, one person at a time. As the years went by, the Rebecca Flores Foundation continued to thrive, and its impact only grew. They had become an internationally recognized organization, partnering with other foundations and governments to address global issues. Rebecca's voice had become one of the most powerful in the world, advocating for those who had no voice. Her message of empowerment resonated across borders, inspiring people from all corners of the globe to take action and make a difference. But despite the recognition, Rebecca never forgot where she came from. San Mateo remained her home, and the people there had been with her every step of the way. She continued to return to the community, visiting schools, hosting events, and mentoring young people. She wanted them to know that no matter where they came from, they had the power to change their lives and the world. One day, as she stood on the stage at a global conference, Rebecca looked out at the crowd and felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had come so far from the girl who had once been afraid to speak her truth. She had built a life of purpose, a legacy of love and empowerment that would last for generations. "I stand here today because of all of you," Rebecca said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "We've built something together, something that will continue to inspire, to uplift, and to transform lives. This is not just my journey, this is all of ours. And we are just getting started." The applause was deafening as the crowd stood in ovation. Rebecca knew that her work was far from finished, but in that moment, she allowed herself to feel proud of what she had accomplished. She had not only changed her own life but had also changed the lives of countless others. And that was the true measure of success. As the conference concluded, Rebecca and Richard walked off the stage hand in hand, knowing that their journey would continue. They had created something bigger than themselves, something that would live on for years to come. Their love and their work had become a beacon of hope, reminder that anything was possible if you believed in yourself and in the power of community. If you like this inspiring story, subscribe to our channel and check out what we have for you and your grandchildren in the pinned comment below.